Hi everyone, my name is Robin. Welcome back to my channel. My channel is about my 5-year journey away from a long-term marriage. And I'm just recapping before I get to the point where I start the story, but I want to just do some videos on to precipitate on how this all happened. And I want to welcome you. If you could kindly subscribe and like my video, I would so appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, welcome back for those who are following me. So, back to my story. Let me recap a little. I went through bankruptcy, eviction, cat dying on my birthday, and my father passing away in a 2-month period, and all during menopause. So, how I survived that is by a miracle of God. And then eventually my marriage broke apart and I left my ex. And I have been trying to survive the last 5 years on my own. And the reason I started these videos is because when I was going through this havoc push of my life, I had no one to turn to. There were no videos out there to help me because no one was telling their story. And I started this because I cannot believe that I'm the only one who has gone through hell and back and lost everything and surviving. So I'm here to help you get through the journey like I'm getting through the journey. So I'll help you if you help me. So I am living at this point in Florida in a small apartment with my husband, my ex, and we are both working. And things are not good between us because I have now started working, earning a paycheck. I wanted more say in the finances, and he had always been very territorial about it and was not willing to start sharing about our finances, even though he had just bankrupted us, lost everything. He came for money, I did not. And so he felt that he was, of course, more capable of handling finances than I was. And so, because this had been the pattern we had been on. However, when we first got married, I did handle the expenses, but he took that away from me and I love to tell people because I wasn't able to handle it. And I did tell him at one point he has to stop saying that because he's making me sound like I'm incompetent. And it wasn't that at all. He just wanted to make sure he had control of the finances and that he can hide things from me. And I wouldn't argue about paying too much for something. So he just really wanted control of it. And ironically, the first job I got when I had to go back to work was accounts payable, paying bills. So there you go. So things are not going well, and I'm really in the abyss of despair. I'm in complete depression because I just woke up one day and realized that I was being mentally and emotionally abused for my whole entire marriage and life with him, which was about 30 years. And I then, just was just kind of like surviving, but living in a daze and a fog. Now I moved to this complex in Florida, and we were walking our dogs, and there was a woman that I met there who turned out to be a Reiki healer, and she said she can help me, but I wasn't ready to be helped. I was still stunned in a fog, in a daze. And my whole world was shattered. I didn't know how to start my life again. And could I start my life again? But as we talked, I did want to seek Reiki healing, but I just couldn't get myself to go to see her. So it started like I would avoid her when I would walk our dogs. And then one day I'm walking to the gym. She's walking from the gym. And as true Florida fashion, as people who lived in the tropics, it's sunny everywhere. There's sunshine, but over us is this one black cloud with rain. So I have an umbrella just in case, and it starts to pour. She, doesn't have one, and I ask her, come over, share my umbrella. And then we go into this awning, and it's pouring. And next thing I know, I'm opening up to her, and she wanted to know how I was doing because I met her the very first week that we moved into this complex. And I said hi to her, and I told her I really didn't feel like talking because my father had just died that week. And she understood. So this meeting that we had under my umbrella, I started opening up to her and telling her about my life. Well, the next thing I know, I'm in her apartment, crying my eyes out, having a healing session with her. And I really started feeling much better. And I started seeing her on a regular basis. And the Reiki healing balanced my energy. And I am a psychic medium, so I do work with energy. What I do on the side to make a living is I do psychic readings. And so I am clairvoyant, I am clairsentient, claircognizant, and clairaudient. And I've always been, but I pushed that away my whole life until I finally embraced it. And why my marriage also broke up, I went through the dark night of the soul and a spiritual reawakening. All right. I say reawakening because I always was very awakened anyway. So I started seeing her on a regular basis and I was getting stronger. And then I started becoming my old self. And I wasn't going to take my husband's crap anymore. I was not going to engage when he started baiting me. I was a whole new person. And I just started having my old identity, self actualization, and I was becoming stronger. And as I was getting stronger, he was more threatened. And it was getting worse, that our fights were just increasing. And one of the reasons they increased is because I wouldn't engage. He would want to bait me and fight me because he wanted control, because I wasn't falling for it. That made him very angry because he knew he couldn't manipulate me like he used to manipulate me. So what came up was, all right, so in my hometown, I went to this really cute little grammar school that was there for like 100 years. And I spent 7 years there. So they were going to tear it down for a new building. And so I saw it on Facebook and I really wanted to go. And I hadn't been out of Florida for a whole year. And for me not to travel for a whole year, stay in one state for a whole year was just odd for me and stifling. And I really didn't like living in Florida, and my marriage was bad. And by the way, I never liked Florida. I don't like heat. So it wasn't like, I know many of you are going to say, oh, well, you know, you didn't like Florida because you were unhappy with your marriage. I was never happy with Florida. I used to go there as a child all the time to my aunts and uncles, but I'm not a person who likes the heat. So I don't like the tropics, humidity. So it wasn't, that added on to it, but that wasn't the real reason I didn't like the state. So I decided I was going to fly up and rent a car, and I was going to spend a few days in New York and a few days in New Jersey and see old friends. I had the best time of my life seeing my old friends. I went to visit my grandfather's grave. I went to New York, visit friends, had lunch and dinners with them, and then I saw friends that I grew up with who have known me forever, who reminded me how strong I am and who I am and where I come from and what I come from. They reminded me how strong I am, and my roots gave that to me. And people have known me since I was like 6 or 7 or 8 years old, who always had my back, who believed in me and who know me. And they gave me such strength. And I was staying with a friend of mine named John, and someone who grew up 4 blocks away from me, who's known me forever. And I asked him, I said, how do you know when your marriage is over? And he said to me, when you know you can't live like this anymore. And I had been to that point already. I could not live like that anymore. And when I left John and his wife Shirley, I drove back to the airport and I cried the whole entire time because I knew my marriage was over and I had to leave. I had no respect and no love and no admiration for this man whatsoever. He did not protect our family. And I don't know if he loved me. I still question to this day if he ever loved me. But he lost my childhood things and really didn't care about that. And he lost so many things, and yes, they are things, but things matter because they create your memories. When people say, oh, you could just replace that, you can't replace the memory that thing gave you. It's not that black and white. It's like life. Life is gray. It's shades of gray. And you just can't replace it as like you want to, and feel that has not changed your life. It does. And So I cried all the way to the airport, knowing I'm going to have to end this marriage because I was so unhappy and so miserable. So I get back home, and he picks me up from the airport, and we start life again together. And I'm home for 2 days, and he said to me, "Hey, let's watch this movie that's on Amazon." And my ex is a real motorhead, not fixing cars. I'm sorry, he's just into cars as a hobby, and he wants to watch Framing DeLorean. Now, for you people who are a little younger, John DeLorean was from the 1980s, and he was in the car business, and he was trying to find any way to save his car businesses up, and so the government framed him with a cocaine sale. So the movie is called Framing DeLorean because the government framed him. And so I said, sure, let's watch that. All right, we turned the movie on. Oh my God, the movie like mirrors my life. My ex was in the car business. He lost the car businesses. We had a house in Manhattan. I sat there and just sank in my seat like, oh my God. And it was just so similar. It was creepy. So at the end of the movie, John DeLorean is, of course, acquitted because it was proven that the government did try to set him up. So they had this bogus cocaine set up to set him up. And at the end of the movie, he's acquitted, and there's his wife hugging him. Oh, I love you. This is great. And they walk out of the room hand in hand, hugging and everything. But at the bottom of the screen, it said, John is acquitted, and 10 days later, she filed for divorce. Well, my ex looks over at me, and he said, is that how you're going to do it? Oh, I was like, gunk. I was in shock that he even asked that. And we got in this huge fight. But you know what? I came clean. I told him, I'm going to leave. Yes. How can I stay? All right. I lost respect, love, admiration. I mean, I can work on rebuilding the marriage. But what I could not take anymore, which I was very concerned about, was his narcissistic rages. They started getting micro-abusive, where he was holding me back, holding me down, where I would run out of the apartment, shaking. And I was afraid that these were going to escalate because I changed. I was not fooled anymore, and I was not going to engage. I was not going to let him bait me. And I was afraid for my safety. When we were living in Manhattan in a townhouse, we had other people in the house. So he, of course, showed none of these characteristics and these traits. One thing about narcissists, a lot of them are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and that's how mine was. He made sure that he was the vision of the best husband in the world in front of other people. I had so many people tell me throughout my marriage, you have no idea how lucky you are, and you're married to the nicest man in the world. He made sure that he did this all behind closed doors and made sure no one saw it. And so at this point, I started being fearful for my safety. He's starting to get micro-abusive. And from what I know, it's just going to escalate because I was a different person. And what really scared me was that I thought, how many times do you read in a newspaper or on TV that a husband accidentally killed their wife? And I did not want that to be me. I did not want that to be my children's legacy. I was now afraid of him. I was afraid of his instability. And in his mind, I was the blame of this. In his mind, I was the blame of his downfall. Because as a narcissist, he can't accept responsibility. It's everybody around him whose fault. And because I was the closest to him, I was the number one target. So I left my husband really out of safety. I was willing to work on it. Um, we did see, we had some Zooms with a psychiatrist, a therapist, and I basically told her, you know, to be honest with you, I'm not working on this marriage. It was a little too much too late. I had gone for therapy for 22 years, and he had gone like maybe a handful time with me. He never wanted to go because he could not outwit and outsmart the therapist, and he felt ganged up on. And then I had to hear all the way back home just his ramping and raving about how that session was just one-sided. He was attacked. Oh, it was so not worth it. But he never went separately to therapy by himself. I did. And when I went to therapy, therapy was so helpful. I'm a big proponent of therapy. I worked on my marriage. I worked on my childhood wounds. And my therapist had children around the same age. So sometimes I would just, talk to him about my kids. Like, am I doing, the right thing? Or what do you think? So I always went to my session with, with a thought in mind on what I wanted to talk about. I just never walked into a session not knowing what to talk about because it's the session's only like 50 minutes. It's very expensive, and I want to get work done. And so he didn't, he tried too much, too little, too late for me to even want to work on it at that point. I had done the work. And now I was fearful of him. I was fearful. So I did fess up and I told him I was leaving. And as a manipulator, he wanted to know immediately how you doing it, when you're doing it. He wanted to know all that. So he knew how to sabotage it when I wanted to really do it. All right, because I knew he would never allow me to leave. I had to blindside him. He would never have let me go. And it wasn't about love at this point. It was about control. I mean, for him, it was all about appearances. What would it look like? Like he lost everything, and then he lost his wife. The second wife. I am the second wife. The first wife left because he was too controlling. How would that look? So unfortunately, I had to blindside him, and to this day, I'm not happy that's how it had to go down. I can just imagine what it feels like that he had to walk into an apartment and I was gone. I can't even imagine what that was like and what that felt like. It breaks my heart that that's how it had to go down. It breaks my heart my marriage ended. That was 30 years of my life I invested. And to be clear, 20 of those years were wonderful. They were fantastic. We had a loving, wonderful family. We were the epitome of a really wonderful family. I mean, picture perfect. Went on trips, Christmas cards, photos. A lot of people would say we were the perfect family. But when the money ran out, his real personality showed for the first time. I saw who he was and the man that he wasn't. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart, and he became physically abusive. I mean, throughout the years, he was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He was praising me how great I was, or he cut me down like I was a nobody. And I was done with it all. I was so done. And I wasn't going to take that. And I wanted to show my children what a strong person looks like. So then I started to realize I have to leave. And I reached out to a friend to help me. And that's a whole different story because that turned out to be a disaster too. And that's when I left. And I will end this now. And I hope you stay with me with the story, with my life. I'm getting to the point where I leave. As you see, I just told you the story about, how I left, how I blindsided him. It was horrible. But somehow I found that strength because I knew I had to find a purpose for my life after that. And this man was just going to use me. At this point, I felt like I was just a paycheck to him. That's all I felt like, a paycheck. So I will end it here. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. And thank you for staying with me. It is hard for me to talk about all these things because it's heart-bearing, heart-wrenching, and how one's life can fall apart. But if I can help one or two people get through what they have to go through to get to the other side, I will help you get through it too. I've been through it. I believe you're the author of your own story. I am not letting that man or what had happened define who I am. I'm going to be the writer of my own story. And I hope you stay with me because, yeah, when I get to the part where I leave, yikes, my life turned, my life went crazy and I'm surviving it every day. And I hope you join me. And I I know I may come across as really happy and jolly all the time because happiness is choice, and I'm going to make my life happy. You know, even though it's a struggle, I struggle every day just like you do. But happiness is a choice. I'm going to make that my choice. And I'm not going to let my life with my ex define who I am going forward. I can't change the past, but I could build the future. So I hope you join me again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And goodbye, everybody. Bye.